If you're trying to get bolder shoulders like this, then this video right here is for you. Now, if you didn't already know, the shoulders consist of three muscles: the anterior, lateral, and posterior delt. Now, these muscles right here are responsible for taking your shoulders through different ranges of motion, such as shoulder flexion, which is responsible for moving your arms forward; extension, moving your arms behind your back; abduction, moving your arms away from your torso; adduction, moving your arms towards your torso; internal rotation, internally rotating your arms towards your torso; and then finally, external rotation, externally rotating your arms away from your torso. All of these movements right here will one way or another be needed in our exercises in order to target all three delts for our shoulders. Now, this then leads on to the first point of the video. The way I was able to build these cannonballs right here, right? You feel me? I know y'all seen this, man. The first step is to get this shirt. Make sure y'all copy yourself a compression shirt, because that's going to be honestly the best way to really accentuate your physique. And I'll be getting a lot of comments, right? So that's step number one. Now on to step number two. The exercise that ultimately built the foundation of my shoulders was none other than the handstand push-up. Now, if you're a seasoned viewer, then this shouldn't be a surprise, because the key to implementing our shoulder strength and size is to essentially have some kind of overhead pressing movement. And for me, that was the journey of learning the handstand push-up. This exercise right here is going to be responsible for a couple of the ranges of motion that's necessary for the shoulders. That includes shoulder flexion, abduction, and a bit of internal rotation. All these different movements right here is going to be best targeting our anterior delt, aka the delt at the front. Now, the way I approach this is by having 3 total sessions for my handstand push-up training. One of those sessions is going to be considered a heavy or high intensity day, consisting of 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps. 2 of the other sessions now are going to be more so on the moderate intensity range, consisting of 3 sets of 3 to 5 reps. But here's the important part, man. So listen closely. Now, because we're not just adjusting the amount of load that we're using, which is one variable for progressive overload and building muscle, but instead, I'm manipulating the amount of work that I'm doing for my delt, which is also another variable for progressive overload. In this case, this is going to be the number of sets that I do per week. And honestly, since I'm here to still learn and master the handstand push-up technique, training with a high frequency approach is ultimately going to be key, because this exercise is still a skill. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be training it to failure every single session. Okay, that's very important right there. Make sure y'all keep note. Otherwise, technique is just going to be complete trash, all right? And realistically, because of limitations such as balance and overall performance for the exercise, I'm not going to be seeing much progress. All because of what? Fatigue, which is why having multiple sessions throughout the week is important, so long as I'm not maxing out every single session. More frequency equals more work equals more strength and muscle adaptations, taking into account that we're managing intensity. Thing is, that's not the only reason why I was able to build these shoulders with the handstand push-up. And the additional step to the handstand push-up is to utilize drop sets. After my last handstand push-up set, for example, if I'm doing 3 sets of 3 to 5 reps, on that final set, right, I allow 1 to 2 drop sets of a easier progression of the handstand push-up. So that means for me, I like to stick with the deficit pike push-ups, or sometimes just a standard pike push-ups depending on how I'm feeling. Now, this allows me to not only practice the same movement pattern, the same body positioning and alignment, but get more volume to build muscle, because at the end of the day, volume is key when it comes to building muscle, and as well as intensity. But because I'm not trained to failure every single session, these drop sets, bro, the light just turned off. Hopefully I don't mind that. But back to what I was saying, these drop sets are going to be including into my overall development of my anterior delt, because I'm still going to be putting in a lot of effort and I'm still training to failure, but with an easier progression. So this is going to allow me to really focus in on the technique, because since it's more stabilized compared to the freestanding handstand push-up, I could truly push my body to failure, specifically push myself to muscular failure. So in the gym context, this is basically the same thing as doing an overhead barbell press for 3 sets of 3 to 5 reps, working within 135 pounds or so. It's about 45 plates on each side. And after your last set, all you're doing is just doing 1 or 2 extra sets but at a lighter load. So let's say you part doing from 135 to now 115 pounds or so. Same thing, just different applications. All right. So if you haven't given this a try, man, for those who can do either freestanding handstand push-up or at the progression of wall handstand push-up or whatever progression of the handstand push-up journey you're at, make sure you utilize drop sets by going to an easier progression. That's going to really help drive in that strength adaptation and also build more muscle. Now, coming into our third point of this video is to target our lateral delt. So it's going to be this muscle right here or on the screen right there. This means we're going to need a movement that allows for shoulder flexion, adduction, and a little bit of internal rotation. This is going to be none other than the lateral raise. Pretty common. Y'all should have guessed it. But the way I do is kind of differently than most folks. So currently, I've been doing the lateral raise, but on the incline bench, to do a more chest supported lateral raise with the dumbbells. This exercise right here really forces you to engage those lateral delts because of the support from the bench. You're not going to be using any unnecessary momentum because when it comes to an isolated muscle, we have to make sure that we're really focusing on engaging primarily that specific muscle. So I like to train this movement up to 3 times per week. Yes, I know. High training frequency approach, man. That's the name of the game for these smaller muscle groups. But honestly, sometimes at a bare minimum, I just do it twice a week just to be real. Sometimes I be skipping, but ultimately though, 2 to 3 times per week is what you need. Kind of similar to the handstand push-up, I like to implement one heavy day consisting of 3 sets for 6 to 8 reps and then 2 moderate days using 3 sets of 10 to 15 reps. So it's the same thing, but just different rep ranges. Now, the method behind the madness is, I noticed that really for me, and I think most people as well, the shoulders recover a lot more quicker compared to my other muscle groups like the back, the chest, and honestly, like even the triceps too. Now, I don't know the exact science behind it, but I do know the practicality of it because I've been doing this for a pretty long time. So using my own self-experience from a calisthenic background, learning the handstand was ultimately one of my most well-praised, appreciative achievements that I pretty much done to this day, especially whenever I first started. But essentially, the name of the game for me learning the handstand was by using a high training frequency approach. And I would essentially do this 5 times a week, keep in mind. So maybe I either developed the conditioning necessary to be able to do these lateral raises 3 times a week because of my prior background from doing handstands 5 times a week, literally. And even today, like I still do my handstand training like 3 to 4 times a week. So I might have just built endurance, but y'all can verify the science on that. Again, that's a probable theory. I'm not 100% sure, so y'all better not quote me on that. Anyways, though, after our working sets, I do like to utilize another drop set or 2. With the chest supported dumbbell raises, I follow it up with just, the unilateral dumbbell raises. I hold on to the bench. You can hold on to a cable machine. You can do it without holding on to anything, but it's really all up to you. The way I like to do is to still kind of maintain some form of support, some form of contact to like really making sure that I'm not utilizing any momentum, any swinging. Now this right here is going to leave your lateral delt on fire, like no cap, man. Now transitioning on to our third point of this video is to target the posterior delt, meaning we want to find an exercise that allows us to do shoulder flexion, abduction, and a little bit of external rotation. So basically just bringing our arms behind our torso like this, for example, right? Now, I might get some pushback because might be an unconventional way of training the rear delts, but I will say the way I was able to build my rear delts, my posterior delts, was by using a horizontal row, more specifically the inverted row. And this is mainly because I attribute the rear delts with my back. So whenever I'm doing a back focused day or upper body day, whether it's right now or like a few years back, I would still train my rear delts according to doing my pulling movements. Because at the end of the day, you're still pulling, right? Now the inverted row is a horizontal row calisthenic movement that does target the rear delts and upper back, but you got to make sure you're using a wide hand grip position. Otherwise, if you don't do that, meaning let's say you use like more of a shoulder width grip, then you're gonna be targeting more of the lats and mid back. So if you're doing a wider hand grip positioning, then it's gonna force you to really use those rear delts. And if you really focus on pulling with your elbows back, squeezing at the very top, coming all the way down to the point where you're like protracted, then you're gonna really feel this on your posterior delt. And that's pretty much it, man. I've been doing this for years, like no cap, even to the point where I'm doing it weighted. But that's not super consistent. I just prefer to keep it nice and slow over increasing the loads, just because it's just a harder setup to do when it comes to doing weighted inverted rows. But if you do want a more optimal route, I do recommend doing ring reverse flies. Now this is really going to be isolating a little bit more on the rear delts, similar to the cable machine reverse fly. I believe like dumbbell flies, similar movements, but just a different exercise. I actually do recommend this if you do want to take the optimal route, but sometimes I just be lazy, and I think the inverted rows gets your most bang for your buck when it comes to hitting your upper back and also getting your rear delts. Hey, I'm all about simplicity. I don't like to overcomplicate things. I don't want to be in the gym for too long, especially since I got to record and do a bunch of preparation when it comes to like skills and all that. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents right there. Now moving on to our last point in the video, okay? Listen closely, man. This is probably the most important part. How does one figure out how to utilize all these tips, exercises, and just, methods that I just stated with the managing intensity, volume into some kind of workout split, right? That's probably a question you might be thinking right now. And that's actually by booking a free consultation call with your boy, where I basically help answer any outstanding questions regarding to weighted calisthenics, strength programming, and the best workout split and structure that I researched, planned, brainstormed, and applied over the last 4 years. All right, maybe 5. That's all free game right there. 15 minutes. But hey, what do I know? If you like to see more content like this, be sure to follow me, man. I'm Tough Fitness Scout here. No cap.
Cobra Trains, he's up next. Make sure y'all subscribe to him. He's #1 out here.
He's the toughest fitness guy out here.